What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homegrown Hustle. I'm here with Nick Pintozzi. He's the founder and CEO of Astro Ads. They work a lot to help businesses sell the business that they get from the lead sources that they have. And unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses that have a massive gap there, right? They think it's, oh, we need more marketing, we need whatever. No, maybe you need to look at your sales process, right? And that's kind of what y'all do. So Nick, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, and then let's dive into it?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. First off,
my pleasure,
happy to be here. Happy to have a conversation. You hit it on the head. A lot of people, a lot of companies think they need leads, and you do need leads. But what happens once a lead comes in is just as important as generating the lead in the first place. And we like to help companies overcome that. So
how do you do that?
Yeah, we do that through systems. We
build, guys, take notes.
We build systems. We take ideas on how customer experiences should look. The tough part is executing those ideas in a consistent manner. So what I mean is people like to do certain things, but having team members or even yourself on top of all the other responsibilities that come up, it's hard to follow through and provide that consistency, for each and every customer that comes through a pipeline. So getting those ideas out on paper with you like a little blueprint to help them visualize what their ideas look like. And then once that looks good, then we can actually build that into a system, into a software. And, we use one called Go High Level or High Level to build those out and plug those into any sort of backend ops kind of CRM that tracks, things like the job scheduling or dispatching, things like that. So they
really
talk
like this is sales, right? It's a CRM for sales and maximizing the return on ad spend and conversion rate, right? Like those would probably be the two biggest KPIs that someone in my shoes would be looking at, right?
Totally. Yep.
Side note, we are working with Astro Ads. We're currently kind of in that blueprint phase, but this has been a while coming. Oftentimes implementation of things into a business, it's not like, is this a good decision or not? It's when's the right time so your team can actually go through that evolution of managing this new tool. Because the last thing we want to do, bring it in and have a tool that is great and perfect and it's dialed, but your team doesn't want to use it because they weren't ready for the change and they weren't bought into that. So for us, we've practiced some patience and brought you in right now. So for people who run insert types of businesses that get value from the services that you offer.
Yeah, a lot of businesses that work with homeowners that require an in-person appointment. Typically, so think like home service companies. Oftentimes, the homeowner reaches out, and I like to look at it in two ways. Sometimes there's what I would call kind of like an emergency homeowner that's saying, hey, I have a problem. I need someone here right away. And then we have another type of homeowner that's looking for, like a deck or a fence that it's important to them, but it's not going to be the same as their roof that's leaking while they're on the call with the company.
But I mean, high volume where there's a lot of data to manage, a lot of transactions and conversations, you can see the impact of something like this a little bit easier, right? If you're only managing like 2, 3, 4 leads a day or something like that, is there still value that you can bring to those organizations as well? Yeah,
I think the foundational concepts apply whether you're doing 5 leads a day or 50 leads a day. The speed to lead, getting confirmation messages to them when they reach out. These are things that, from our experience, any business, can benefit from and can implement. But what we see is the bigger organizations that do have greater lead flow, they see the impact a lot more dramatically. Because for them, if you can increase by an extra 10% on the low end, 10% of revenue is a pretty big bump for some of these companies.
So 100%. If you get us 10%, I'm going to be jacked, by the way. But I see as just more opportunity than that, right? The big thing that I see that I think people should think about is when your job as a business owner or a leader is to provide your team with resources, opportunity for growth, but all the tools that they need, right? So if there's resources that are available, tools that are out there, and they can make the day easier, more efficient, simplify and minimize stress for the team members, doesn't it then kind of make a requirement for us to seek out and bring those things into our organizations? That's the way I look at this type of thing. Because if I can help my sales team be more efficient, I'm going to be paying more commissions. If I'm paying more commissions, we're making more sales, right? It's like this whole math problem, guys, but it works.
Yeah.
And it's more than just, another piece of tech. Well, what happens with tools when you bring them in, it's really like how you use it and how you're able to adapt it over time. Because it's not just silver bullet, right? You probably get some lift from it, but you, like anything, you can't just like buy it and like let it run.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about like some of the success you've had with a couple companies and like how they've evolved over time and any type of success stories there, so people can start thinking about what it could look like in their business if they bring systems and tools like Go High Level in.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I'd like to encourage anyone, that's maybe even tried tools before, oftentimes we think we know what we're doing right away. And what we set up, we think that we can just set and forget. And the idea in our head is going to be executed as great as we thought. But in practice, sometimes that's not always the case. And so
a lot of times it's not the case.
I'd say 95% of the time, that blueprint step was something we added because, we have these in-depth conversations. We were, on a call for almost 2 hours, kind of going through, questions on preference and what experience you want to deliver. And when you see that laid out, sometimes what you say is different than kind of like how that looks. And you think, hey, maybe this isn't it. And then if we go one step further, once it goes live, usually it's 60 to 90 days figuring out where those wrinkles need to be ironed out because what we said was different than what we put on a map. And then what's on the map in practice doesn't actually work the way that we think it would. And so if someone's tried tools, if someone's, used automation, used AI, maybe even tried high level, but it didn't do what they wanted it to do in the beginning, I would encourage them to be a little more patient and be willing to pivot those strategies because we're in a day and age where these tools, so many applications can do so many different things. It's almost overwhelming.
Take almost out of there. It is overwhelming, dude. Like I've been overwhelmed more than one time when I'm looking at a new piece of tech.
Yeah. And think of learning like a new, I always try and be very upfront with people and say, learning a new software sucks. Like it's not always the most fun, but after a couple of weeks, the best news is that that's the hardest part. And you can start to benefit from some of those systems. And that's really how our process works in the beginning is when it goes live, we start to optimize and we see what is working, but then what isn't working. And so, a couple examples, we have different home service companies. We have an exterior company, they do roofing, window siding. And that's typically the service-based businesses that we support the most. And starting out, they come in and they convert about 1 out of 4. That's, not even a bad conversion from a new lead coming in. The problem is that they didn't know what was happening with estimates that weren't accepted right away. They'd sit there kind of in this open estimate phase and there wasn't really anything being tracked after estimate, or you can call it a proposal, was given. No one was really following up.
Hurts to hear.
Yeah. Well, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, after tracking it and then putting systems to nurture those open estimates, they're close to now about 50%. It's like 47% conversion on their leads. So
bro, that's gnarly.
Almost a double. And I always tell people, like, we don't reinvent the wheel. Statistically speaking, if you follow up faster with leads and you follow up longer, you will convert more leads.
It's math.
It's math.
Right? And the sales, when does the sales process or the sales journey end?
I don't know if it does.
Exactly. It ends when you stop thinking about it as a sales journey or pipeline, right? But a lot of people do, because the easiest stuff to sell is the one that just came in.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
But it doesn't mean these other ones, like the 15 to 30, 40% where you got to work a little harder, that's a lot, right? And if we're just it's kind of like laziness almost. At least it used to be. Now there's technology that can help with that, almost to a fault at times, where it removes some of the humanness of it. Anyway, we got to back up here. I love this stuff. and I know that we can make some impact in people's businesses, but like nobody really knows who you are yet.
Yeah.
So like, how'd you start Astro Ads? Why'd you start Astro Ads? Let's peel back some layers here, Nick.
Yeah, sure. I'll lay out all the cards. From when I was a little kid. No, not that far back. I started Astro Ads in 2018. I was stationed down in Florida. It's in the Air Force. I was an intelligence analyst. And
thanks for your service.
Yeah, appreciate the support. And I knew long term that I wanted to build something that like would make a big impact without me being tied geographically to a certain location. And so, it was during the time when, you'd see Ty Lopez, these like internet ad people say, hey, here's my Lamborghini in my garage and I can make money. And,
as the tiger walks by.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, they're in a pool and it's like, okay, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
But I buy the concept that you can build a business anywhere in the world, as long as you have an internet connection and a phone. And yeah, it took me, I'd say probably about 60 days of me being in Florida before I realized I gotta figure something out. I gotta look into what I want to do, and I had no idea about entrepreneurship. I hadn't even really thought about it prior. So I just dove in, started reading, started trying new stuff out. My first actual entrepreneurial experience was a Kickstarter campaign that I ran.
Tell me more.
Yeah, I got successfully funded for an eco-friendly eyewear company. So we would build sunglasses and we would donate reading glasses to individuals in developing countries. They would have impaired eyesight. And so we partnered with that nonprofit and brought this vision through Kickstarter and got funded. And that was like my first real business.
That's a gangster play,
venture,
dude.
Yeah.
Like, what an awesome thing to start your career off with.
Yeah, it was, I learned so much, I didn't really have anything, I was still in the Air Force. And so when I'd get off or, just in my free time, that's all I was doing. Didn't have a lot of money. So I was doing basically everything myself or selling stuff I had. Like I remember trading my Xbox at the time for a videographer to record an ad, like just to make it happen.
Love that so much.
And yeah, like I cut my teeth that way. And, I was able to share that and kind of like get that in front of a lot of friends, family. And I think I learned through all of that after the Kickstarter kind of campaign ended and there's not like all that hype around that. I realized, oh, okay, you got to learn how to like market these now because people don't just line up to buy sunglasses. I wasn't getting, anyone knocking on my door. Like it was just, I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And so that's kind of when my eyes started opening to the digital marketing side of things was, okay, these.
Now you started learning that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So new problem.
Yeah.
Have to come up with new solution.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And Facebook ads, were back in 2018, Facebook ads were fire.
Yeah.
and they still are effective, but the strategies are different from what we've seen and just
so
the competition.
More, yeah.
Now everybody runs Facebook ads. Everybody's the best Facebook marketer in the world. Everyone can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a different time, for those platforms.
Also, some people don't do it. Everyone can, but a lot of people don't. Yeah. So the people that do might as well do it really good, right? So you crushed it with Facebook, Meta, that whole side for you're selling sunglasses.
Selling sunglasses, yeah. So I a couple of mentors. I'm a big believer in coaching, and funny enough, it's from a Facebook ad.
Shut up.
I'm not even joking. And best decision at the time, I want to say the program was $4K or $5K. I didn't have it in the bank and I did it anyway on a payment plan.
Savage.
Best investment, best decision I ever made in probably my entire life and it came from a Facebook ad. And so.
Isn't that funny?
It's very funny. I laugh about it with a couple of colleagues that I met through that mentorship program and it's unbelievable to think of kind of what happened from that.
Okay, so what did that mentorship or that bring to the table that wasn't already there?
It opened my eyes on what you can do with Facebook ads and then from there who you can help with Facebook ads too. And that's what opened my eyes to an agency. And that was very conflicting at the time because for the past, call it year or 18 months of me pouring every single thing I had into this eyewear Kickstarter campaign to even consider this other idea of another business at the time and not really being 2 feet in. You know, there's the saying, it's like you chase 2 rabbits and you catch none.
Test the water with both feet.
Yeah. And so that was super difficult.
But you did that. So how did you?
I did.
So what was that type of transition like? Did
Yeah.
you just sell your ownership or whatever that you had?
Yeah, there was a friend of a friend. I didn't know the guy at the time, who had been kind of just like following along on the sidelines, and out of the blue mentioned that he would be interested in potentially exploring kind of what that would look like for him to take it over. And at that moment, it kind of relieved this burden of, hey, I'm really excited kind of about this marketing thing over here.
Yeah.
But I still, you know, have built this kind of momentum, you know, right up to that point where we, you know, had our first pre-order list. We, you know, had a whole stock of inventory that campaign funded. And now's the time you want to transition. Like, what are you thinking, dude? But how it ended up working out was he ended up taking that, and then I went all in on marketing, and that was that. And that's what originated Astro Ads.
And so it sounds like you're good at solving problems and creating new problems, because now you're going down that path. Last I talked to you, you have some crazy growth goals for your business, but every time I've spoken with you, you tie it back to like how it's actually impacting those businesses and the changes. Like, there's purpose coming from what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you're trying to grow your own business, but when you can make impact that has potential to change some business owners' lives, right? Like, that's cool to be in your shoes, right? Helping them solve those problems, create those opportunities where they can better their workforce in that space. So heck yeah, dude.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. That's how I feel with the systems that we build and help manage. It's more than just leads. It's more than just an app for them to use. It's predictability. It's consistency. It's like sanity. Sometimes I feel like, you know, being able to look and actually, you know your numbers and see, you know, these things change. I think you hit it on in the beginning. Like, this is like one big math equation.
Yeah. You just don't know what you're trying to solve for, what any of the variables, but you got to figure it out.
Yeah, but you know they're there. You know that they're there. You know that there's numbers. Sometimes numbers are easier to look at than others.
But having numbers and data, especially as you're growing a business, like, that's what we got to make decisions on, especially when you're saying we're going to take this marketing investment, which really could just go in your pocket and you could not market at all, potentially, depending on the business model. But when you invest in marketing, that's the future sales of your company, right? So when you're going to invest that, like, you really want to maximize every single last drop of that. But people just stop at the math equation because, like, marketing becomes a box that business owners check, right? So that's why I'm so jacked to talk about this. And, like, the fact that you got to where you're at because you had to solve those problems yourself, I think it says even more about, like, the impact that this can really bring to any business, right? If you sell something, you have a product, you want to get in front of people, do it as good as you can.
Yeah.
So, all right, you get a great opportunity to exit, start this other business, and you've had a lot of success. You've grown, and you've also changed zip codes.
Yeah,
right?
Change zip codes. Yeah,
So
no
tell me a
longer
little bit about
Florida.
that.
No longer Florida. Yeah, my whole family. You know, we grew up in Minnesota.
Just
The
bleeding
seasons,
purple.
yeah, you know, you're down there, and it's tough. Like, you don't have to twist my arm to be by a beach, and you know, like it's nice. But after a couple of years, after that transition to the Air Force, you know, you miss your family growing up. You know, I've got younger siblings, and I didn't get to see some of them go through kind of their older, you know, high school years. And looking back, Florida hopefully will be there, or other places near the ocean. And so it's just time to head back, you know, up to Minnesota. And I didn't know necessarily if Minnesota would be my home, would be kind of where I'd start putting roots down. And then I met my now wife, and she's from middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. And so when she came to Minneapolis for school, for her, this was like the big city, you know, this is insane. And so she really loves it. I really love her. So we compromised, and now I'm staying in Minnesota.
And
so
and that was how long ago did you move?
Probably 2022.
Okay,
I'd say around there.
You're new to the area, so let's pick it up in 2022. Like, where's the business at?
Yeah.
And what have you had to kind of learn as you've scaled the business? Like it didn't teach you how to entrepreneur it up in the Air Force, right? So
No.
talk about some of those things you learned along the way.
Yeah, I think vision, I hear it more now, funny enough, the signal versus noise kind of saying. There's a lot of noise out there, man. There's a lot of that shiny object syndrome, that girl in the red dress, there's always something new. And I remember moving back up here, it was an opportunity to take a step back and say like, okay, what is the real signal? Like what direction, what's maybe another way to say it is what's the North Star? Like where are you going? And what we had found when we started marketing and running Facebook ads has now led to these systems we build. And it's the fact that people are pretty shitty with their follow-up
especially in Minnesota, dude. Like,
yeah.
So what data points have you seen that are telling you
I'll
that?
give you a great example. So we'd work with 2 companies in the exact same city, and being from the lead gen space, I use this badge with honor, and I can say with 100% certainty that every lead we generated was 100% exclusive to the company we were working with. That's not the case for everyone. Some people share leads, and that was never something we did. But none the matter. We had 2 companies in the same area with their own campaigns, their own leads. And, we'd have this one company and say, hey, this is amazing. Like we're killing it. We're growing. We want to scale up. And we'd have another company in the exact same city with their own leads, but running a very similar offer that would say, this sucks. Like no one's picking up. We're not getting results. And, everyone says like business isn't personal. You hear that.
Yeah.
How do you not take that personally? Like, how do you not, take that on the chin?
Yeah.
And so when we look into it, what we would find is when these leads came in, sometimes people would wait until the end of the day. They'd wait till after dinner, or if they didn't get around to it, they'd call them the next day. And if they're really crazy, they'll call them twice and maybe send a text. And if they don't hear back, it's a bad lead. And what we found through that process was a lot more overwhelming at the amount of companies that was a problem for. And so we always would get these conversations. People would book appointments, they'd come from ads and they'd say, hey, I need more leads. And over the years, I think what we found was what people were really saying is, hey, I need more sales. And instead of solving the problem by filling up the bucket more, what if we fix the bucket first? What if we said, okay, you need more leads? Got it. Okay, I hear you. What's happening when a lead comes in right now? Where are they going? Who's in charge of it? What happens if they don't answer? What happens if they do, but they need to talk to their spouse? All of these different
and like what's best practice?
options.
What's the data telling us that we should be doing differently too? Because the data is like first step. Then especially with sales process and like the architecture around building that, like tweaking it over time, like that's how you take a system that works and you keep adding little bits and pieces to make it more effective. Yeah. But you got to look at the data and know what the heck it means. And that point that you're saying, anytime somebody says they need more leads, that's really reported from your sales team. Really, that means they're not converting at the rate that they want and probably that you want. So it's really you're not selling anything problem. And there's other steps there, right? So the math problem, let's look at it. Let's look at the math problem. Yeah. And at a certain point, the business owner can't not look at that level. And some people never get there, but working with a system like Go High Level, technologies move forward so fast. Facebook ads have helped your business grow through what you've been introduced to. Like, gosh darn it, Mark Zuckerberg, like making the world smaller through accessing other people and their experiences. Like it has made some positive impact, at least for me. Like I've seen it on my side. Yeah. So 2022, right? How did you start building your company now?
Yeah, no, now we focus more on the back end. So kind of going into the high level side, and from your guys' experience, I know you guys run ads.
A lot of them.
A couple, and like imagine if you didn't really think about what happened when those leads came in and you just knew that someone was checking this inbox when that said you have a new lead and it, had a name, email, phone number.
Yeah.
and that was it. You know,
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I imagine like, you know, and maybe you can elaborate on it, like what you guys do when a lead comes in and kind of where you were when you first started running ads to where you are now that you're trying to optimize.
Thank you for asking that question. We've kind of been all over the place, right? Like spending money, like looking at it and what you get from a lead source, like you can start doing math off of that. But I've been so far as like spending like $700, $800 a month on ads, and then also like calling my marketing guy, telling him to turn them off because we're too freaking busy. Like I've been from there to spending too much money. To your point earlier, the bucket was overflowing so much that we had excessive waste. So our return on the spend we had was way down. And what we saw when we changed just how many leads we're getting in, our team could better serve those customers and their conversion rate went way up. So it was like 50, 60% swing there for us, because when you have that many leads, you can close at 25% and still like hit numbers.
Yeah, the math.
Yeah, the math until you start looking at bottom line, and like a growing company has costs, right? So you have to be able to spend it on more than just marketing. Like it wasn't the best decision at that point, right? But learning those things along the way, we found that like minimizing leakage within the sales process is critical. And the more human touches are required in the process you build, the more variability is there, right? And there's automations on any CRM that are out there that can help. But with AI and all the connections of the different marketing sources that are there to be able to come in and communicate on one or two channels, that's what makes it able for my team to handle all that. Right? If they're juggling Facebook Messenger and Instagram and they've got inbound stuff coming through all this and it can't get consolidated and put into something that's standardized that we can control on our side, it's complete and utter chaos for them. And we were there for a while, and somehow people didn't quit left and right. And like growing over time, like there's always focus that has to go there because it's the first step in the customer experience. And if you're in any business out there, like the customer experience that's your product. That's what it's really all about. Like we can talk about all this other stuff, but people buy what you have because of the perceived value in that experience and or a previous good experience. But sometimes we suck at showing the customer that because there's no process, there's no thought put into it. I get so many leads, I just get out to the ones that I have, and I don't get to some. I talk to business owners like that all the time, and like starting with just collecting the data, getting phone numbers and email addresses for everybody that calls. You paid for it. That person might need services next year. Stuff like that. You got to learn some of it the hard way, but a system and a tool that's built at the frontest most part of the journey, that's how you can set the whole thing up for success, because now you can track and you can measure and make changes to a system that you build. Yeah,
first impressions do matter. Believe it or not, if anyone out there was, had that up in the air. And I think it goes both ways, with a system, if it's you reaching out to them or them reaching out to you. A lot of people, if they're into leads or have invested money in marketing, have probably heard speed to lead. It's a super common saying that we talk about quite a bit. And a system like High Level or any other system, really, like a lot of them out here could have a text go out to someone that reaches out to your company in 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds, and just confirming that we received your info and reassuring them that a team member will be contacting you as soon as possible.
And they're not. So now the customer is like, oh, I don't have to keep searching.
Yeah, because think of what we all do, right? With our Amazon Prime kind of mentality, right? We don't get something later that day or the next day, and we're like, what the heck's going on? I know if I'm on Google and I'm looking for a service and the company doesn't pick up when I call, I've got a nice list right below that Google gives me, very neat. I see all the reviews, and I'll just click on the next one until I do get my call answered.
It's true. And then sometimes they're clicking on the paid ads, and now you're driving the cost of the whole Google economy up because you keep clicking multiple companies. So fix your sales process, guys, and it's going to bring the prices down for everybody. But really, what's that customer experiencing on the other side, right? Because if you're marketing and they get to you, whether it's first touch, second touch, maybe they're like my dad and they've researched everything and built spreadsheets to like analyze it and stuff.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people buying pest control that way, but we have had some. Regardless, they're going to have some type of feeling about your business. And if you're well branded and your name's memorable, like that feeling is going to stick there and they're going to remember it. So what is that and how much thought are you as a business owner putting into it?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what it is. That's why people refer you. That's why people cancel your services. It's all the things, but there's a problem I see that maybe you could shed some light on is like people sometimes think that their customer's problem and like how they do business is so unique that they can't build a process around it.
Yeah.
Do you run into that ever?
Yeah, totally. All the time. And I think that's fair. I think people, especially with AI, you know, talking about just replacing humans and just let AI do it for you. We have a saying, it's leveraging automation without losing personalization. And inside of these technologies that we have, high levels specifically I can speak on, there's things called custom values that you can use to customize someone's experience while still leveraging automation. And so for an example is if you fill out a form with your name, email, and your address, I can take pieces from your address and send it in a text messages that would say, hey, Matt, this is Nick. I'll be in Plymouth. I'll be in Mound later today. Would it be a good time for me to swing by and check out this X? And X could be if we had something on the form that said, what's going on? What problem do you have? And it could fill that value in for you. But then the cool part is it could fill it in for the next person the same way. But we can use technology without making it feel like it's a robot. You know, if you ever see like the reply stop to unsubscribe at the bottom of those messages and you read it and you're like, oh yeah, that's a robot.
Yep.
That's good that that message is there. You know, compliance, you need opt-out messaging.
Yep.
But what about if you used a perspective of being compliant without coming across like a robot and changing the verbiage? So you said something just super nonchalant that was like, hey, like, just so you know, for compliance purposes, like you can tell me to stop anytime and I'll just remove you from our list, without screaming, hey, this is a robot that's texting you. We're still compliant. You know, we're still following these guidelines, but we're not putting ourselves in a box that loses that personal feel that a lot of the clients we work with, being home service companies, really stand on and feel proud of the fact that we're local. We're here. We're a family-owned company. We care about our community, and nothing screams more than, you know, we're a big company than just like taking out all the personalization. Yeah. So you don't have to settle for that. I don't think people should.
Because like anything that we're communicating to, like especially current customer, like invoices, receipts, any messaging there, like there's messages behind the messaging that the customer is going to get, right? So thinking about that instead of just running with all the templates that are in the CRM and like click and go, I've done that before.
Sure, we all have.
I've done it and then I've learned stuff because it causes problems or the data tells me, hey, you got to learn this. So that template type of mentality and that chat GPT it and tell like give it one or two prompts and throw that in front of all your customers. Like there's so much that is impacted by that by the lack of thought in what we're actually like what we're saying, and maybe like how's the customer going to read this? Like that is critical but so overlooked, just like the sales process.
Yeah, that's great though, like putting yourself in their shoes. And even, you know, just to backtrack a sec, you brought up something really I think is important and something I admire about you guys, just to shout it out here, you know, the experience they go through when they see a company online and they start to do due diligence and they, you know, they want to know who they're going to be working with. You know, even the fact that you guys do this, you know, this podcast here shows, you know, the type of business owner that you are and how that translates over even into what you guys do in Pest, like how you guys just like really set yourselves apart from all of these competitors. And it's not necessarily even pest related, but it shows just the level of, you know, business maturity and just kind of core values and principles, I think.
Kind words, man.
Well, I think it's something that I know internally I need to do better on. And even having conversations like this, I love it. But I don't prioritize it like I know I should, because people do look, and you run ads, I'll go back to Amazon even. First thing you do when you're on Amazon and you find a product, what do? You go down to the reviews. You check and see, hey, like,
is this gonna suck or
not?
not?
Yeah. And we do this, like we do that all over, and having some credibility, some social proof, some, hey, this guy may know what he's talking about, sort of gauge is, I think, highly valued today.
It builds trust, man. Like there's questions when people find your brand and it's new and it hasn't been referred by somebody they know, like, and trust, or they haven't already had that experience, right? There's like when you're saying I'm going to spend money there, especially at your home, like you're having some rando come to your house. Let's be honest. Like that's what the customer's thinking. Like, is this person sketchy or not? Right? And is this business going to take advantage of me? Right. A lot of people have had bad experiences with vendors, and sometimes it's not that company's fault, but you got to overcome that in order to make a sale sometimes. How do you do that if it's just canned messaging, and the feelings of the message and the care that's going to be put into that home don't transfer through on the messaging? Like, we could follow up for forever, and we do have a long follow-up process, but if that person feels like we don't actually care, and it's hard, but like, starts with actually caring and then like thinking about messaging, right? And training your team on messaging and reviewing that as your company grows and evolves, right? There should be some type of standardization as you're growing, where you go back and look at these things that you did last year. And even if you don't have the data, like you can find it if you look far enough. But like that constant refinement and just not being content with what you did last year and just doing that again, like that's where companies can make massive jumps, because like you don't necessarily see it when you're putting the slow, consistent effort in, but sometimes you're like, holy crap, like I'm looking back and we're 20, 30, 40% ahead of whatever my goal even was, right? So that, I don't even remember where we started there, but from a low-hanging fruit standpoint in sales processes, has the data that you've got or that you've seen, like, are there like a few like easy little places people can look at their own sales process and maybe make some tweaks that can impact their business today, tomorrow?
Totally. Yeah. If there's anyone out there that's listening that, has been in business for a couple of years now, and they have contacts stored in a CRM, a spreadsheet somewhere, the lowest hanging fruit is sitting right inside of your phone right now. And it's the phone and talk it's your existing database. And so one of the first things we do with any new client, it's one of the first things we're going to do with you guys when it's finished, is we are going to put together what we call a reactivation campaign that's going to market to these existing contacts we have, whether they're past customers, whether they're leads that, just nothing really happened to them. We're going to segment them out, and then we're just going to drip them some text messages with an offer. And you'd be surprised at the amount of low-hanging fruit that clients have just sitting in their database that they don't do anything with, that can fill up that calendar pretty quickly during maybe a slower season,
That's like absolute definition of, you don't need more leads. You need a better sales process or sales team, or just like, does that fall in like the selling, cross-selling, reselling, now that the leads actually, like officially, I guess, like when does marketing stop and sales start?
Yeah, usually depending on the process, if someone has like a dead or lost kind of category, you could make the argument that when they get moved to lost, like, hey, like they either said no, they weren't interested. But I'm a huge believer that just because they said no today doesn't mean that, maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year later, there's an opportunity that, hey, we don't have to be aggressive, but top of mind, hey, I'm still here. Are you still experiencing this? Did you ever get this solved?
People are afraid to do that sometimes because they're putting their own emotion into that feeling, where like at a certain point, like you just got to do math and use the tools and resources you have. But dude, 20 to 30 to 40% of revenue that people are looking for, they can find it right there. Ask me how I know, because I've done it before. I've helped other businesses do it. Like it really is low hanging fruit. So let's say somebody's been doing that. They've got something decent. Like, where's the next spot to look in the sales process to throw a little gas on the fire, so to speak?
Yeah, I'd go back to I'll use the word estimate, but you can interchange that with however you refer to a proposal that you give. So many of them that, they give the proposal and then crickets.
They just don't talk to the customer again.
Yeah, like, you're already there. You're already, like you shot your shot, right?
Yeah.
And you're waiting for the second free throw to come back because they had to think about it. They had to talk to someone else. They're not someone that makes a decision on the spot, whatever it may be. And again, after 1, 2, if they're crazy, 3 touch points, they assume that they're not interested. But I would double down on that category of people. I think you could do the same strategy. And we see it all the time that we put a little offer in front of those people that maybe just gets them over that line, a little nudge, a little incentive to get them to move forward. And yeah, I mean, that's a huge bucket for a lot of companies that
just like anything to get back to the top of mind. And like, maybe you've missed it because like soccer practice got canceled or something. And like the parents didn't get to have that conversation, and then you just never call them. So you never close that deal.
And what's funny is there is a time, I hear this all the time, where people go too long from making contact with them that they just feel like it's awkward to reach back out. They're like, well, I waited, like it's been 2 months.
A little bit.
But what's different if they say no or they don't respond from where they're at now? Like, you're in the same spot.
Yeah, so just go to the next person and call the next person, right? It's a numbers game. People, like, if we hyper focus on like one, and like that's the conversation we're talking about, one customer, how that one customer is going to feel, which is really how you're going to feel. Like, that doesn't matter because you're not even your customer. The customer is coming from a totally different background and you're targeting them for different reasons. So let's take your own emotion out of it and like look at math. Like, business, we can't really do feelings and all that. Like, we got to do math. And when you do that, the emotional attachment that a lot of us have as business owners, our team members have because they want to do a good job, you get to put that in the corner and like think with your logic side of your brain, right? And like, when you remove that emotional confusion that is brought in when you let it be at the table, it allows you to make good decisions instead of just random ass decisions you're just pulling up because like it felt good at that time. And that one customer that all of a sudden is the grenade we all got to focus on and like do it because it was weird. Like, if you have 100 customers, that was 1%.
Oh yeah.
The 99% over here where there's nothing else better to focus on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. No,
I digress. I'll get off my soapbox here, but
no, does that one experience then now make those other 99 positive experiences less? No.
I mean, there might be something there, but like from your ops team, depending on time of year, like you got to focus on the most impactful thing, right? Like, and if we're focusing on things that are small percentages and like aren't going to make the biggest impact, that's the wrong thing your leadership team's focusing on. But when there's no data, they're going to focus on whatever they feel like.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy, that's a crazy scenario, right? So the business that you have can be applied to any business that sells stuff, right? So for Astro Ads particularly, like who's like, what would business owners be thinking about before they actually call you? So if there's people out there asking themselves these questions or thinking about these topics, give you a call.
Yeah. The best feeling is if they're ever wondering or if they ever have the feeling that their leads aren't being worked as they should. And typically where that stems from is an owner operator in the beginning, when they're first starting running ads, they usually are calling the leads when they don't have a team. But an established business that has CSRs or they have a sales team that they give leads to, the feeling is I'm spending X amount and I feel like we could get more from this. Like I don't trust that what I say should be happening is actually happening, and they don't have a way to validate that.
So it also brings that visibility into like the sales team's performance too, right?
100%. Yeah.
So I think, what's that called? Accountability?
Accountability.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
We love that with leadership. And sometimes we think we have it, but without the data, it's emotional accountability and how they're feeling oftentimes, right? Talk a little bit about that and like how you've seen that work with the customers you've got.
Yeah, the first step I think is centralizing where all of these leads go in the first place. You know, with companies that invest in marketing, oftentimes they don't always put their eggs in one basket. So they buy leads or they run ads on different platforms. They have word of mouth, you know, they get referrals, you know, that just all these places, but the leads don't all go to the same place. So step one for anyone's sanity is making sure that all of the leads are going into one central spot. And the second step from there is then when they're all in one spot, getting your team on board to use this software. That is, you know, and maybe I'll take some recommendations because that's one of my biggest bottlenecks is, you know, companies, owners really care about their leads and the experience and they want a good system. But the sales team is so used to doing things a certain way that they feel more comfortable doing it their way than what the owner is visioning for the next step in the company. So a bottleneck, or maybe a hurdle is a better word to use, is getting that buy-in from the team. Because if they do use the system, then the company now has full visibility over every touch point. They have call recordings. They can see when and how that person is reaching out to the leads. For better or for worse, you know, you're going to see that, but getting people to use a different software. So I always encourage people to be open, be flexible. And, you know, it's like nothing changes if nothing changes. It's like, hey guys, we're doing this for a reason. You know, we got to make a couple of tweaks. It's not the end of the world, but a tweak is a tweak.
When a team is smaller, it's like hard. And like one person not being willing and excited about that, like being willing is like, that's one thing. But when they're excited now, they can run and like, it's not work to have this thing that we want to push down through the company. As an owner, we should have that ability. Like we shouldn't have to convince you to do it, right? But that happens because that buy-in is big. I've found involving them in the process, helping them identify the problem and be part of that solution. It allows them to learn and really build a process with somebody who's a little bit closer to the problem than you as a business owner might be.
That makes sense.
But change is hard, and like starting with the hiring process, bringing in people that are on board for wanting to be part of a growing company, understanding that change and evolution is built into that. So, man, this time always goes so stinking fast. So, what else do people need to know about Astro Ads and what you're offering? From a service standpoint.
What happens after a lead comes in is just as important as generating the lead in the first place.
Facts.
So if you're looking at growing, if you have, you know, big goals for this upcoming year and you're already spending money on leads and you want to grow before spending more money on leads, you know, I would sit down even just with a pen and paper and I would write down kind of what is happening when a lead comes in and see if you can identify any areas for improvement on that process, because there's a good chance that with your existing lead flow, you can get more sales without spending more money. And that's the first step that I recommend. And if anyone ever wants help with that process, you know, we help build that out. We help identify those problems, lay it out visually, and then we build it into the system for them. And then once that system launches, we manage it so we can make those changes and help optimize.
And that's a magical thing that takes away a lot of fear that business owners have when they're bringing new tech in. We got to wrap here. We're going a little over. Fortunately, we can't just sit here and jam forever because I feel like I could do that with you. But we appreciate you coming on the Homegrown Hustle. I know there's going to be some value people get out of this, but we ask one question to everybody. What's hustle mean to you, Nick?
I think hustle means doing things that you know you should do when you don't necessarily feel like wanting to do it. And
like running towards that stuff too.
And I think finding appreciation in those days that it's a little harder to get up out of that bed, you know, in the morning. So that's what hustle is to me.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this podcast. Thanks again, Nick, for coming on. Appreciate it. If y'all got value from this, please give us a comment, let us know what you learned. Reach out to Nick if you're looking to answer some of these questions about your own business and not get more leads, but make more sales. Reach out to Nick. His team's awesome. They do a great job, really high level touch. And we haven't even got it to the customer facing side of things yet, but I'm freaking jacked because I know what it's going to do. I've looked at the KPIs. Anyway, I digress again, second time. So tune in next time. Until next time, keep hustling. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Homegrown Hustle. It's been an honor to share the stories of local legends who make our community thrive. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Please stay tuned for more insight and inspiration. We got a lot of heat in the chamber. This is Matt Eickman saying peace out until next time. Get hustling.